Bill Wirth, and working as a primary care doctor in Seneca Falls, New York has been my life's work. I've had the pleasure of talking to so many patients about their lives. It's been a privilege to learn so much from so many different people just by listening to their stories. In the next chapter of my life, I want to try to share some of those stories with the community. My hope is that together we can help each other grow and learn just as I have. Today I'm here with Miss Clarisse Coggins. Hi, Miss Clarisse. From the bottom of my heart, I am so thankful that you're here spending some time with me. Doing what I do every day, I have so many visits with people where the visit kind of sucks the life out of you, if you know what I mean. Every minute that I have spent with you has filled me with energy and joy and thanks. Today, I want to share some of that joy with everybody else. Clarisse Martin Coggins was born April 10th, 1922, the daughter of Julma and Emil Martins. Her parents had immigrated to America from Belgium in 1914. She grew up on a farm in Port Byron, New York. She attended a one-room schoolhouse for grades 1 through 6, graduated from Port Byron High School in 1939, and graduated from Nazareth College in 1943. She taught English and Latin for 3 years before marrying Al Coggins in 1946. Clarisse stayed home to raise her 4 children before returning to teaching in 1959. She retired from the Waterloo School District in 1977, having taught for 21 years. She is currently happy to be living independently. She enjoys spending time with family, friends, and is an avid Yankees and Giants fan. Most importantly, Clarisse is a woman of great faith who has always found comfort and peace in her devotion to the Catholic religion. Miss Clarisse, I know that I am never supposed to ask a woman this, but tell me how old you are.
I'm 102.
Wow. You grew up on a farm in the 1920s in Port Byron. Tell me about that.
Well, the farmhouse had no electricity, and no running water, no indoor bathrooms, and anyhow, we survived. After it, I had many experiences living on that farm. We all worked on the farm, even my mother. And on the weekends she would kill the chickens for our Sunday dinner. And I had to help her. She would usually want 3 chickens, and I had to hold 2 while she was killing the other one. Once in a while I'd let one go, and I'd get into trouble. But anyhow.
Did you let one go because you were worried, or you let one go by mistake?
By mistake. But life was very, very simple. But after a while, my father had his vegetable farm, and so he'd had a good year. So he got a Delco plant, and then we had electricity, and that made all the difference in our life. But I was on the farm until I was 15 years old, and then we moved to the village, and we moved into a house that wasn't too far from the high school, and so that was good.
What are some of your really fun memories running around on that farm with your brothers or sisters or friends?
I did have that type of fun. There were 4 in the family. My brother was 7 years older than the oldest one, and my sisters she was 3 years younger, 3 years older than I. And then after that, I had a brother who's 8 years old. He's the only one that was born in the hospital. The rest of us were all born in the farmhouse in my mother's bedroom. But anyhow, it was my mother was, she was a good person, a very, very good person. And all of her life, she hardly ever found fault with anyone. Now, is that what you want to know, Dr. Wirth?
There are so many things I want to know. That is just the start. You are such a woman of faith now. Was there church or religion when you were growing up back then? What would that routine have been when you were a young woman?
Well, when I was young, we just went to church every Sunday to Mass and had all the sacraments. But then when I went to a Catholic college, in fact, the first, at Nazareth at that time, the first college was near Aquinas High School. Now, of course, it's on East Avenue. But anyhow, when I went to Nazareth College, my religion became even more important to me. In fact, I thought I might be a nun, but then I changed my mind on that. As you know, I got married.
Your children are very thankful.
I hope so. my children are great to me, and that's one of the reasons I'm 102. It really is. It really is.
It's nice to have good family.
Yeah.
When you were at Nazareth, was there any mentors or someone that you really looked up to?
Yes. I majored in Latin and French, and my major teacher, her name was Sister Rayfield, and one day she said to me, I think it'd be wise if you take as much as you possibly can, because when you go looking for a job, you'll have more of an opportunity if it's Latin and English rather than Latin and French. And that was very, very good advice, because that's just what happened. When I applied for my first job, it was Latin and English. And the rest of my life, I never taught French. So I'm ever grateful to Sister Rayfield for that. Does that answer your question?
It sounds like she was a wonderful mentor.
She was.
For me, that early adulthood time of my life, I think like a lot of young kids, I was lost for 21, 22, 23, 24. It was hard to find my way. What helped you figure that part out to get that first job?
Well, it was wartime when I was in college, and that made a big difference in everyone's lives. But I always knew that I was going to be teaching. That's what I was prepared for. And so you used the word guide.
Yeah.
Am I answering you?
Yeah. I think we all have mentors in our life, or just a moment where, geez, I just really want to be a teacher. This is what I want to do.
And that didn't happen with me.
Gotcha.
Because, for one thing, when I graduated from high school, my father, he was a good man, but he was a boss. And when I graduated from high school, he said to me, now, I want you to go to college, because not too many women went to college at that time. But he said, I want you to go to college, and I want you to be a teacher, just like my sister in Belgium, Aunt Alice, is a teacher. So I was a teacher for the rest of my life.
I had a very similar experience with with my dad. There was a time when I was, I don't know, maybe 18, and I said, Dad, I think I really want to be a writer. And he said to me, Phil, math or science, which would you prefer? And I said, Dad, I really like writing. I want to try to move people with my words. And he said, okay, as soon as you're done with math or science, and then medicine. And that was how it was going to be. And I didn't really have much of a choice either. I had to work to get there, certainly, but it sounds like that European background, especially at a time where they came out of wartime and depression and things that we've never had to go through. That was their guidance, I think, and it served me pretty well.
Yes.
You've also had some transitions in your life. You've been from teacher to mom, back to teacher. You have been retired almost as long as I've been alive. How did you handle those transitions? What do you remember about those times in your life?
The transitions. I'm going to be changing the subject a little bit now.
Okay.
I know one of the words that you used on the card was challenges.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't have challenges, but I had some very, very difficult situations to accept. Is it all right if I talk about that now?
You can talk about whatever you want. You are the boss.
Well, I want to talk about 4 people. The first one is my husband. He was 74 when he died, and he had prostate cancer that had gone to the bone. And of course, when he died, I missed him very, very much. And people, including my children, they said, Mom, you still have a lot to live for. And they were right, because I now have 9 living grandchildren, and I have 12 great-grandchildren. And then the second person I want to talk about is our first grandchild, a beautiful girl in every way. She got cancer when she was 15, and she spent most of her last year up at Strong. And they were difficult years. As I said, she was such a pretty girl. She was on the chemo and all. Her high school was going to have a Christmas party, a Christmas program, but she was able to come out of the hospital, and she was supposed to sing White Christmas, and she did that. But Gina died, and of course that was a very sad time for all of us. The next one is our grandson. When he had finished his 3rd year at Lemoyne College, he had a little pickup truck that he could travel with. And he had it all packed and ready to go home. And while he was doing that, he had an epileptic seizure, and he died immediately. So we miss Kyle very much. He liked to play Scrabble, and he liked to beat me. That was the 3rd one. And the 4th one is Peter Nikosha. That is Teresa's husband. We all liked Peter. The whole family, they really enjoyed him so very, very much. He had a sense of humor, and he liked to imitate people, and he did a good job with it. But anyhow, I hardly ever use the word adore. I use the word love a lot, but hardly adore. But when Teresa and Peter were first married and I had a chance to see more, I said to myself, Peter adores Teresa. Teresa could do no wrong. They were a great team. But just before his 60th birthday, he had a stroke, the worst kind of stroke you can have, locked-in syndrome. So he was not able to speak for the rest of his life, and he was not able to move any part of his body for the rest of his life. So this was hard to accept. Teresa, when she first started talking to him, she said, Peter, I'm going to ask you a question. If the answer is yes, raise your eyes up. If the answer is no, raise your eyes down. So that's how she started communicating with him. Well, he too spent his last 3 months at Strong. And he knew his fate right from the beginning because he was able to know everything that went on, but he couldn't respond. And as I said, he couldn't move any of his body. If they wanted to move him from one spot to another, he had to be moved by a hoist. But anyhow, it was very sad. Peter, as I said, just almost for 3 months, he was at Strong. In particular, nothing had changed much. And he died just before Christmas. So that was very sad. And so I did want to tell you about those 4.
How do you get through those things? I think each and every one of us have times in our life when it gets hard. What were some of the things that you relied on to
My
get
faith.
through some of those very difficult times?
My religion. Yeah, my faith. My faith. Well, I said, God, why did this happen? Because it didn't happen the way I wanted it to. But you go on.
How did you comfort your family through that?
Well, we comforted each other. We did. Our class family's been very, very close. Peter's family was a great family. And in times when we talked to them, it was comforting. But you just go on, and it's sort of like my children said when my husband died, you still have a lot to live for. And we have a lot of great memories of Peter.
Sounds like a wonderful man. As I talk with people in the office all the time after any kind of loss, I hear the same thing. I don't know, you just go on. You just get up the next day and do the best you can and go on.
Yes.
Because you have a lot to live for. I think sometimes when you're in the middle of it, it's just really hard to feel that.
Yes. Well, my heart aches for Teresa because she's been a widow for quite a while, and she he was a great loss.
How many kids did they have?
Teresa and Peter,
Yeah.
2 boys, very nice boys.
And a recent grandkid, am I remembering that right? A great grandkid for you.
Yeah. Well, she has a son, Matt, who has a little girl and boy. And she has a son, John, who has a boy. and they've been very good to her mother, both Matt and Jan. And we see Peter in both of them. They have many good features that their father had. A lot like their father, some of them. Yeah. But I still feel blessed because as I said, I just have this wonderful family, these wonderful children. I enjoyed my teaching job, not all the time, not every day was great, but many days it was very rewarding. It really was. Yeah. It was quite a contrast with my husband, because my husband, he was an Internal Revenue agent, and when he retired early, he surprised me, and he said, "Do you realize that every day of my life that I've gone to work, no one has been happy to see me come, because I tried to be fair to both the government and the taxpayer." So he did retire young, and we had a good retirement life with Al, as long as he was alive. Al and I, we didn't make 50 years. We made 46. But we had quality, which is better than quantity.
It is.
Yeah.
Miss Clarisse, we've been talking about relationships, and there was a Harvard health study that's been done for decades now, and really they followed your generation of men and women that graduated from Harvard up until currently still. And they were trying to look into what are some of the things that help us live a long time. And the most important thing is people's relationships, good relationships with family and friends. What are some of the things that you've done over the years to maintain those relationships?
Well, I really had lasting relationships. When I was at Nazareth, there were 6 of us who were very, very good friends. And being wartime and all, we spent even more time because there weren't any boys to date or anything like that. But anyhow, the 6 of us became very good friends, and when we graduated, we said we'd have to stay in touch. So we did. Every month we'd get together. And then after a while, the girls had boyfriends and the war was over, and the boys would join us. And then they got married, and we still got together, all of us. As I said, with the 6 of us, we all got married and had children, and our children were involved in everything. We'd have picnics, and that's the way it was right until the very end. And just about 2 months ago, the last of that group, both the husbands and wives, I'm not talking about children, both the husband and wives were passed away.
So does that mean you're the only one left?
Yes. Yes. And as far as you want me to talk about other people having good relationships?
I'd love to hear about it.
It's just being kindness and honesty and being interested in the same things. I guess that's all I can think of right now.
Some of it is diligence.
Yes.
I know a little bit about you. And you send cards and text messages and things like it's nobody's business. you are constantly reaching out to your friends and family. How often do you send a card or a text message these days?
Well, as you know, because of my medical problems, I can't write well anymore. But I print, and and as I said, it keeps getting worse to the point. But I've decided I can print, so I'll just say, dear so and so, I'm sorry for your loss, and I write my name, and that's it, because the writing's so difficult.
So at 102, writing has become a smidge difficult.
Yeah.
How many cards did you send when you were 80?
A lot.
Yeah, I bet a lot. Did you send cards every day?
Probably to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've worked at those relationships forever, and you've been really, really good at it. It's one of the things that every time I talk to you, it warms my heart. It's one of the things I'm terrible at. Sometimes I'm working so much that I forget to reach out to those people that I should be reaching out to.
But you're busy.
Yeah, thank you. I try to be. As we think about life in general, what are some of your overlying philosophies of life that you might want to share?
Well, I think it's important to associate yourself with intelligent people and people who have the same interests and people who are good listeners. I think there's so many today who are not good listeners. Does that answer your question?
It does. Over your lifetime, what do you think has led to a happy and fulfilled life? What has made you feel joy over the past 102 years?
Well, I think in my situation, as I'm getting toward the end of my life, I realize more and more how important it is to maintain a good relationship with your children and your family as much as possible. And they have differences, and in some situations probably something I really don't like. But I think it's important, despite all that, to love these people. And I want to add, to love your doctor.
Thank you. I think, to me, sharing love is so important. And that's really what we're all doing, right? Just sharing a little bit of ourselves with each other, hoping that maybe we can make the people around us just a little bit better.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I can and sometimes I can't, but gosh, it's fun trying.
Yeah.
Is there any overriding thoughts or closing principles or any other stuff you want to share with us today?
I'm sure there is, and it's not coming to me now.
Was there anything in your life that you wish you could have accomplished or tried that you didn't?
No.
No regrets?
No regrets. As I tell you, I do feel that despite many situations, I feel that I have been blessed. And it always comes back to the fact that my religion helps me a lot. In fact, you remember one day when we were in office, and I told you, Dr. Wirth, I have this faith, but when the time comes for me to die, I'm getting close to my death, I'm going to be scared as heck. And I still feel that way, even though I'm getting closer to it. And you sat and pondered for a while, and then you looked at me and said, "You will be all right." And after I left the office, I wondered just what he meant by that. And then I thought, well, maybe he's thinking when you're close to death, and very often they give you morphine,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're happy.
I think that's some of it, but I think a woman of your faith, you're going to be all right. The people who aren't going to be all right are the rest of us left behind that are going to miss you. That's going to be the hard part. You are going to be fine.
Thanks again.
You're welcome. You're welcome.